Today we have a list of 5 NFL players entering pivotal years in 2023. Now I'm sure most of us know that stat about how the average NFL career lasts a little over 3 years, but on this list includes guys that at one point were near the top of the league at their positions, guys that were high draft picks, and guys that were successful not even that long ago. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave in the comments anybody you think I left off, and let's get into it. Number 1's Baker Mayfield. He enters year 6. 4 years in Cleveland, spent last year with Carolina first, then gets released, goes to the Rams the second half of the year. Baker's career has been pretty odd so far. It was a great 2018 rookie season, plenty of high hopes, runner-up for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. 2019 was the year the Browns got Odell Beckham. They bring in Freddie Kitchens as the head coach. So much hype around that team. People saying, oh, Cleveland's Super Bowl contenders, and they were terrible. And then 2020 happens, the COVID season. Kevin Stefanski's brought over from the Vikings. New offense. Baker Mayfield excels, has a really good year in 2020. They actually won a playoff game that year, beating their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. But then in early 2021, I think it was week 2, Baker Mayfield throws an interception, goes for a tackle on the guy who intercepted the ball, hurts his shoulder, and was pretty much messed up the rest of the year. I'm sure if Baker could go back in time, he probably avoids making that tackle. So anyway, he struggles the rest of 2021, had some horrific games. I remember that game versus the Packers with 3 interceptions late in the season. And then of course the Browns thought, hey, we have a window, we have a really good team, let's go upgrade the quarterback position. They go out and get Deshaun Watson, who had plenty of controversy around him at the time, but it was a clear upgrade. So because of that, Baker Mayfield was then traded to the Carolina Panthers, lasted 7 games there, then of course got released and ended the 2022 season with the Rams. So pretty big fall from grace here for a former first overall pick who showed plenty of promise in 2 of his first 3 seasons. And I was a Baker fan. I hope he succeeds. I want the guy to do well, but now in Tampa, signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. He still has Mike Evans, still has Chris Godwin, but that Tampa team not looking too great these days, so I don't have the highest hopes, but Baker Mayfield should at least start this season. I'm assuming the Buccaneers want to see what they have in Kyle Trask, but I'm assuming week 1, maybe the first half of the year, Baker Mayfield is the starter for the Buccaneers. And how will it go? I mean, I want to be optimistic. I like the guy, but based on that roster, the coaching they have, I don't see it going too well. Next is wide receiver Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints. So 2019, we go back 4 years ago, Drew Brees still playing. The guy had an NFL record, 149 catches in 1 season. That was back when there was 16 games too. It wasn't like he had the extra game. It wasn't some Mickey Mouse shit. This was a real record. 149 catches with 1,725 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2019. Then since that time, the guy has missed 40 out of 50 games. Michael Thomas unfortunately cannot stay on the football field. He only played 3 games last year due to a toe dislocation, which doesn't sound like much, but apparently it is very, very painful. And in week 1 of 2020, he had a high ankle sprain. You're thinking, okay, he'll be out for a month or so, comes back, gets re-injured again, and just was never the same guy. Honestly, I shouldn't say that, because last year, early in the season versus the Falcons, I remember this guy put on a great performance against AJ Terrell and the Falcons and had a 2-touchdown game against them. So Michael Thomas can still probably play at a pretty high level. He's now 30 years old on a 1-year deal. I mean, technically it's not a 1-year deal. It's one of the most complicated contracts I've ever seen, and I'm not some like contract guru. But it's definitely a make or break year, because if Michael Thomas gets hurt again and misses over half the season, how's a team going to sign him to a contract next year for a multi-year deal? I just don't see that happening. He has to be healthy, has to produce, and he's in a pretty decent situation. I feel like the Saints have a pretty good offense right now. Chris Olave is your other wide receiver, take some attention off you. Derek Carr, definitely an upgrade over Jameis Winston. So 4 years later, could Michael Thomas bounce back? I mean, he might. And for those that play fantasy football, he's a pretty nice discount this year. Keep your eye on that. Number 3, Chase Young. Remember Chase Young, the generational pass rusher out of Ohio State? He was just so explosive. He was bigger, faster than everybody else. He was just a different breed back then. And admittedly, I loved that guy coming out of college. There was a game between the Giants and I think they were the Redskins at the time. They played a game in the 2019 season, like week 16 or so. The loser of that game pretty much locked up the 2nd overall pick. And me wanting Chase Young very badly, I wanted the Giants to lose that game. And that was just to get Chase Young. But in hindsight, it was great because the Giants got Andrew Thomas. And so far, Chase Young's career has not gotten off to the best start. start. He had future Hall of Fame potential written all over him. It started out well. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year as a 21-year-old back in 2020, and he looked like for years to come he was going to be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, maybe the best. But in 2021, things really took a big step back for him numbers-wise, and then halfway through 2021, he tore his ACL in Week 10. And I'm sure most of you remember last season how it took Chase Young a long time to get back. He was supposed to be back at some point, middle of the 2022 season. He didn't come back until Week 16. And honestly, he did not make much of an impact, but I'm not going to hold that against him. It's tough to come back for the final 3 games of the year and do much. But Washington did decline his 5th-year option, so he's pretty much in a contract year. Now, due to franchise tags, I'm sure if Chase Young has a breakout year once again, or a resurgence, I should say, they will franchise tag him and make him do it 2 years in a row. But if Chase Young gets hurt or doesn't look good, he might be a free agent next year, which is just insane to think about if you can just go back in time 3 years ago. It's a big year for him. He does have a lot of talent on the defense around him, so hopefully he gets back to that player he was back in 2020. Number 4, Mac Jones. The 15th overall pick in the 2021 draft had some really big shoes to fill, and I'm not talking about Cam Newton. But of course, you talk about the Patriots, Caucasian pocket passer, the GOAT just left 2 years prior. Obviously a tough situation there for Mac Jones to walk into. But Jones did do well as a rookie, completing 67% of his passes along with 22 total touchdowns. The Pats also went 10-7 that year, made the playoffs, but got demolished in Buffalo. And I mean demolished, that was a rough game. So Josh McDaniels was the Patriots OC in 2021 during Mac Jones' rookie year. But going into year 2 for Mac Jones, Josh McDaniels took the job in Las Vegas and was the head coach of the Raiders. Meaning there was an offensive coordinator vacancy with the Patriots. And it's funny because if you ask somebody who are 2 of the worst offensive coordinators you could have for this young quarterback in year 2, you would probably say names like Matt Patricia, or Joe Judge, or Hugh Jackson. They picked 2 of those guys, and it was Patricia and Judge. And it went just about as bad as everybody expected it to. But now the offensive coordinator in New England is Bill O'Brien. Now say what you want about the guy's GM skills, he's probably the worst GM of all time based on some of those trades, but the guy did cook with some really underwhelming quarterbacks in his time in Houston. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Case Keenum, Brian Hoyer, and Brock Osweiler. He had 3 straight 9-win seasons with those quarterbacks. So if there's a time for Mac Jones to get back on track, it's probably now. They did lose Jacoby Myers, but they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster. Kind of seems like a lateral move. Yeah, you take away the chemistry, but I'm sure Juju and Mac Jones can figure that stuff out. Now, if Mac is good in year 3, I'm sure next offseason they'll pick up his 5th-year option. It'll all be good. But if he sucks next year, they'll probably decline the option, have him play out year 4 in a prove-it type year, and at that point, who knows what the hell is going to happen. So I think with the offensive coordinator upgrades and getting rid of Patricia and Judge away from the offensive play calling, and the fact, I know we all say this all the time, oh, he's in the best shape of his life, blah, 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 but there's actual pictures of Mac Jones. He looks very good. Like, he wasn't in the best football shape the past couple years, but there's been some off-season pictures, training camp pictures. The guy really took care of his body this off-season. And I was never that high on Mac Jones to begin with. He just doesn't have the tools that I really look for in a quarterback in the modern NFL. But I do think he'll look more like the 2021 version as compared to the one we saw last year. Is that good enough to make the playoffs in a very tough division and conference as a whole? Maybe, maybe not. Lastly, Ryan Tannehill, quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. He had a year and a half where he looked amazing. He was like Kirk Cousins on steroids, basically. But after 2020, his numbers took a step back, and even though Tennessee won 12 games in 2021, it wasn't exactly the same. In their 2021 playoff game against Cincinnati, the Titans were the home game. I believe they were favorites. Ryan Tannehill played horribly. And that was the game where Joe Burrow got sacked like 9 times. The Titans definitely should have won that game, but Tannehill was brutal in that game. He did have that amazing pass to A.J. Brown, and we'll give him that. But 2022 was just bad overall. He battled injuries with an ankle multiple times, and the team drafted a 3rd-round quarterback in Malik Willis. And some people thought Malik Willis was going to be like a 1st-round pick. So when that happened, the whispers were like, oh, Tannehill might be done in Tennessee. I don't know. But they brought in Malik Willis last year. He didn't look that great, but that was pretty much expected anyway. But then after 2022, they took another quarterback, this time trading up in the 2nd round, 33rd pick overall. They get Will Levis out of Kentucky. And although the reviews on Will Levis have not been that great so far, The trade up to the 33rd overall pick, pretty much the first or second pick of the second round, they're going to want to see that guy play at some point. But I do think with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins especially, the Titans at least want to give this one more year of trying to compete. So I think the plan now is to give Tannehill the 2023 season, see how it goes. The AFC South is better, but it's still not that great. The Colts are clearly rebuilding. The Houston Texans are still clearly rebuilding. The Jaguars, they're in the same tier as the Titans, I'll give them that. I might even like Jacksonville a little more, honestly. But with the way Ryan Tannehill's contract is structured, there's a good chance this is his last year as the starter in Tennessee. Now, he just turned 35, so how much longer does he have in general? I don't know. But 35 in quarterback years, it's not that old. It kind of reminds me of Aaron Rodgers in a way. Not exactly the same, but I'll explain why. When the Packers took Jordan Love, it was pretty much because, oh, Aaron Rodgers, time to turn a page. He's on the decline. I think Ryan Tannehill can kind of delay that process. Now, of course, inevitably, the young quarterback gets their shot eventually, which is what Jordan Love's doing in 2023. But Aaron Rodgers was able to hold off Jordan Love for 3 seasons before Jordan Love saw the field as a consistent starter. So Ryan Tannehill, with, I think, lesser competition, I think Jordan Love was looked at as a higher regarded prospect as compared to Will Levis, and of course Malik Willis coming out of college. Tannehill has a chance to hold off those guys for another year, maybe even 2 years, and if he keeps the Titans competitive and keeps them in the Super Bowl conversation, he might buy himself another 2, maybe even 3 years. What we do know for sure is that he has to play well in 2023 to buy himself more time as the Titans quarterback. I have a couple of honorable mentions here to close things out. I have Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker for the Cardinals. Don't even want to call him a linebacker. I think they might try him at safety this year. He has played every game. He's been durable so far, but his game has not translated to the NFL like they thought it would. He was the 8th overall pick in 2020. But I will say, with the Cardinals adding Jonathan Gannon, who was the Eagles' defensive coordinator last year, they will put Simmons in a lot of favorable situations, play him in different spots, and he'll probably have the best year of his career if I had to guess. I put Russell Wilson because, yeah, he should be on here, but Russell Wilson's contract is so Russell Wilson friendly that even if he sucks again this year, I don't think the Broncos can get out of it. I think he's there regardless. So obviously, yeah, they brought in Sean Payton. They have a good team. He kind of has to play well, but I don't think he's in any type of danger of losing that job. I also mentioned Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott pretty much has 2 years left on his deal. I know the Cowboys were talking about a possible extension. But Dak last year, a lot of turnovers. I think a lot of questions have to be answered. They went out and got him Brandon Cooks this past offseason, so another weapon. Their offensive line's still plenty good. He just turned 30 years old, so now we're getting to that point where it's okay, you're in the prime of your career. Can we finally make a deep playoff run? So I think a lot's on Dak's shoulders in this 2023 season. Of course, there's some others, but I'm not going to run through the entire NFL right now. But anyway, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.